Today is October 15th, 2025, and we're going to look at my updated power rankings after week 6. This is going into week 7 of the 2025 NFL season. And I do want to mention before I start listing off these teams, it was a lot easier this week to fall in the rankings than it was to either stay where you were at or gain leverage in the power rankings. And again, this is not a who is the best team talent-wise or on paper who is the best team. This is who has been performing the best lately. No matter who they're playing against, while that does somewhat factor into the rankings, what is most important is how each of these teams have been performing comparatively to each other. With number 32, I think this is a pretty obvious selection that it's the New York Jets. They're staying at the number 32 spot. It's the same selection I had for that number 32 spot as last week. They just have shown zero improvement. They technically passed for negative 10 passing yards against the Denver Broncos in London last week. So a bad performance, but technically they couldn't get any worse. The Tennessee Titans, I have them dropping one spot from last week at number 31. They fired Brian Callahan yesterday. They offensively look poor. Defensively, they don't look great, but still, it's just not a very good team overall. And they probably own the worst win in the NFL. The Miami Dolphins dropping 2 spots to number 30. They lost a game late to the LA Chargers. You have Tua Tagovailoa in the press conference after the game talking about how guys aren't showing up to player-only meetings or showing up late to those meetings. It's a tough look right now for the Dolphins. I have the Arizona Cardinals dropping 4 spots to number 29. They lost again this week, and they're sitting at 2-4. I get a very similar feel about how this season is going as I did about the Saints last year. The Saints started 2-0. They had a historic 2-0 start, and then they wound up losing a bunch of games. The Cardinals started 2-0 this year, and they followed that up by 4 losses by, I believe it's a combined less than 10 points. I'd have to look to get the exact number, but I think it's either exactly 10 points they've lost the last 4 games by, or it's less than that. And I have them at 29. Just compared to the rest of these teams, I don't think they're performing very well. Kyler Murray is out. They lost James Conner. They, I believe, lost Trey Benson as well. The DeMarcado fumble. I think that this is just, it's going to be a bad-looking season when we get to the end of it for the Arizona Cardinals, and that's more of, I think, what factored into my putting them at number 29. At number 28, the New Orleans Saints, I have them dropping just 1 spot. They played a good game against New England. Spencer Rattler played solid, and they looked like they had a chance to get a winning streak going for the first time all year in the first time with Spencer Rattler at quarterback, but they ended up losing late, so I have them dropping. The Baltimore Ravens dropped 1 more spot to number 27. Shocker of the season so far. It's not a shock that they're losing without Lamar Jackson. It's just a shock that it's like the season from hell for Baltimore. 27 is where I have them. At 26, I have the Cleveland Browns. They wound up losing to Pittsburgh, and while it wasn't an ugly game, Dylan Gabriel didn't have an interception. The offense didn't have a turnover. They had a chance to win this game, and they had multiple drives where, yes, they only scored a field goal, but they had multiple scoring drives that spanned, I think, like 15 to 19 plays. That's a pretty good sign for a team that isn't winning games, but you want them to be... You don't want them to be the team that's just shooting themselves in the foot. That's not Cleveland right now. Cincinnati, I have them staying where I had them last week at number 25. First game with Joe Flacco at quarterback, and they played a good Green Bay team. I don't think this was a bad performance from them at all. So I have them staying where they are. The Las Vegas Raiders, I have them jumping up 5 spots. And again, this is kind of influenced by the fact that the teams behind them, they're not performing very well. Many of them are not performing very well. So Las Vegas, you kind of are getting like the best of the worst right now treatment. Jumping 5 spots after a win against a Tennessee team that just fired their head coach, I don't know how good you feel about it if you're the Raiders. And it wasn't like it was a blowout. It was a 10-point game. It could have very easily, with a couple of plays going Tennessee's way, it could have been a win for the Titans. The New York Giants, I have them, again, like the Raiders, jumping 5 spots after a win over the Philadelphia Eagles. You could consider the Giants the most improved team of the season if you're only looking at the last 3 weeks. 2 wins against solid teams in the Chargers and the Eagles this week. You dropped the game last week against the Saints, but this week you're feeling really good about how the Jackson Dart start to his career is going. Cam Skattebo, and it would only be even better if Malik Nabers was still on the field. The Dallas Cowboys, I have them dropping 3 points to number 22. They just lost, and Carolina's not a bad team, but you lose to Carolina, I don't feel great about you anymore. I felt really good about Dallas's offense, and I still feel pretty good about it, given that George Pickens is going off, Javonte Williams is playing well, the offensive line is playing well in protecting Dak Prescott. I still feel decent about Dallas. They could easily jump up into the top 10 at some point this year. The Houston Texans, I have them dropping 3 spots to number 21. They didn't play this week, but again, it was really hard to keep your spot, especially if you're not playing in a game. Houston, I have no problem with them dropping a few spots here. The Carolina Panthers at number 20, they go up 2 spots after beating the Cowboys. Rico Dowdle, this performance he's put up the last 2 weeks is absolutely incredible. Ted McMillan is looking like possibly the rookie of the year at receiver. I know he's got Tyler Warren to look up at. I know he's got, some good players offensively this year for Offensive Rookie of the Year. But Ted McMillan, after catching his first 2 touchdowns of his career, he had another just great performance for Carolina. He looks like the guy that he was selected in the top 10 to be, and that's the number 1 receiver for that team. The Minnesota Vikings, I have them dropping 4 spots to 19. Again, a team that didn't play. They had their bye week this week. But again, these teams in front of them, I think, are also performing better. Washington, I have them dropping 7 spots after that loss to the Chicago Bears. I think it's fair. I understand that if you're a Washington fan, it looks bad. But again, compared to the teams in front of them, I just don't think they're performing as well. Atlanta at number 17, they went up 3 spots in my ranking after beating the Buffalo Bills. It was a really good performance by Bijan Robinson, by Michael Penix, by Drake London. Even Kyle Pitts got in on it a little bit. So this is what you wanted to see coming into this year. The quarterback, running back, receiver, tight end, a good offensive line, good enough defense to do the job well for you. And Atlanta at 17, I think that's a good spot for them to be after only 6 weeks. At number 16, easily the biggest drop of this video, the Philadelphia Eagles. I have them dropping 10 spots all the way out of the top 10. I said a couple of weeks ago, when I still had the Eagles after they were 4-0, I said, you know what, until they lose, they're the number 1 team in the power rankings. That's kind of why power rankings are a little dumb, because now they're 16, and now they haven't played well for the whole season. And people thought, well, they need to get A.J. Brown more involved. That's going to unlock the offense. They did that, and they scored 17 points. So I'm not saying if you target A.J. Brown a lot, you're going to only score 17 points. But, I think it's not an issue of get A.J. Brown involved. It's an issue of putting the ball in the end zone. Right now, that's just a struggle for Philadelphia. The Kansas City Chiefs, jumping up 6 spots. To me, I have them tied with another team I haven't mentioned yet for the biggest jump. They beat the Detroit Lions. They were at home, and there was some shoddy referee moments. But at number 15, after a tough start to the year, and this is also I want to see them do it for the whole year. I know they've won 3 Super Bowls. I know Patrick Mahomes might go down as one of the best quarterbacks ever. I want to see them do it a few more weeks here. At 14, I have the Rams. They didn't move up or down, even with a win against Baltimore. Baltimore right now with no Lamar, with a very injured team, with a very poor performing defense, LA really didn't shock me, scoring only 17 points. In fact, it was almost shocking that they scored only 17 points. The Chicago Bears, they were able to live through the nightmare that was the Washington Commanders. Last year, that Hail Mary, you could look at it as the deflating moment of the Chicago Bears season. You could look at this win against the Commanders on Monday Night Football as the moment that they, I wouldn't say turned their season around, but established themselves as a playoff candidate. The LA Chargers, I have them at 12. You beat a Dolphins team by 1 point. I'm not going to absolutely go crazy, but this has been a well-performing team. Offensively, they performed well, and that's kind of what they needed to do against a bad Miami defense. What I am looking more at is I just don't think there was a good defensive performance from the LA Chargers. I like Miami, their offensive pieces, but I wouldn't say I like them enough to put up a fight with the Chargers. That's something they're going to need to address, is how to stop an average offense. The Denver Broncos at 11. I actually have them dropping a spot after winning in London. Now, this would have been probably a bigger drop. I might have put them behind the Chargers or even the Bears if their defensive performance was not as incredible as it was. They sacked Justin Fields 9 times, and the total yards lost by Justin Fields was 55 on those 9 sacks. Justin Fields threw for a total of 45 passing yards. So that means their net total of passing yards was negative 10. That's an incredible performance, not to mention the fact that, Justin Fields, Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, that's a lot of really good players on one offense. Whether you think Justin Fields is a really good quarterback or not is a different discussion. He's an athletic, very mobile, very talented player. And the Denver Broncos shut down that team. The Jacksonville Jaguars, I have them dropping 5 points after a loss at home to the Seattle Seahawks. They just couldn't get anything going. They really did not look like the team that beat the Chiefs 2 weeks ago. They just looked like it wasn't great. It didn't start great either. I think there was a play to Travis Hunter that went backwards to start the day. It was never off to a good start. It never got off to a good start. And it never really got off the ground for the Jaguars. At number 9, the Buffalo Bills. I'm going to be honest, at first I had them around 11 or 12, but then I saw I had them with an 8-point drop, and that doesn't really seem fair. I know they lost to New England and Atlanta in back-to-back games, but Atlanta and New England, I think as we're seeing, especially with New England, those aren't patty cake teams. Those aren't teams that are just pushovers. I still think Buffalo, offensively with Josh Allen, with James Cook, if Kincaid and Knox are playing well, if the offensive line is playing well, it's a team that's championship contending worthy. I think they've just had a bad couple of weeks. The Seattle Seahawks, they've had a good season so far. And Jackson Smith-Njigba looks like he might be becoming one of, if not the best receiver in the entire league. He's easily stepped into the number 1 role since the trade of DK Metcalf. And he's even possibly elevated the passing attack for the Seahawks. The Green Bay Packers I have at number 7. They're tied with the Chiefs for the biggest jump in these power rankings. They beat the Cincinnati Bengals, but now I'm starting to forget about the Cleveland loss a few weeks ago. Now I'm starting to see, okay, this offense, they're not able to be shut down by everybody. It just was a good Cleveland team. I think Green Bay is still one of the teams that can contend for a championship. They're up there with San Francisco, Detroit, Tampa Bay as the teams to beat in the NFC. At number 6, I have the Pittsburgh Steelers. I had them jumping up 3 points. It's going to be a very interesting top 5. I'm just gonna warn you here. Pittsburgh at number 6. They beat Cleveland. It was a double-digit margin of victory, so that kind of adds to how much better you feel about them after that win. But again, a really good season from Pittsburgh overall. Aaron Rodgers has been far and above expectations, in my opinion. The San Francisco 49ers I have at number 5. They lost to Tampa Bay. And look, I had them at 3 last week. I really don't think that I don't think it's crazy to get beat by the best team in the NFL and lose only a couple of spots. That might be a spoiler, but again, I don't think it's that big of a deal. The New England Patriots, I have them jumping up 4 spots to number 4. They've just won games. They beat New Orleans this last week, and they've had a really good year. Outside of that Las Vegas loss where they played poorly, just to keep it honest with you, they've had a really good season. Indianapolis, I have at number 3. The best team in the AFC right now in terms of my power rankings. They're 5-1. Yes, they beat a not very good Arizona team, but they're still 5-1. They're still undefeated at home. They still look like a solid team and a possible dark horse in the AFC. The Detroit Lions, after losing to the Kansas City Chiefs, I have them dropping only 1 point. I still think they're better than all of the teams I've mentioned so far. Honestly, I think they've played better. I think their performance has been better this season than any of these other teams. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I might have spoiled it when I was talking about the Patriots, but I have them as the number 1 team in the NFL for power rankings purposes. I just think once this team is fully healthy with Ibuka, Godwin, and Evans, it might be kind of nearing the end for Evans, but Godwin is still youngish. Ibuka looks like possibly the rookie of the year so far. I don't think you want to go against them in the playoffs because not only do they have the passing attack, they have the ability to run the ball. They have a great offensive line, and possibly their best player on the team is their left tackle, Tristan Wirfs. They have a defense that's getting takeaways, that's getting after the quarterback. They just have a really good shot, in my opinion, at winning the Super Bowl this year, or at least being the team that represents the NFC in the Super Bowl. That's going to be the power rankings, at least how I see them. If you see it differently about your favorite team, whether better or worse, let me know in the comments. Make sure you like the video, make sure you subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.